a Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state. The indictment includes 41 felony counts and is 97 pages long. Please remember that everyone charged in this bill of indictment is presumed innocent.
Fourth time's a charm, apparently, for the Trumpster. Good morning on a Tuesday. That is Fani Willis, Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney, announcing the most recent indictment for Donald Trump. I know they're hard to keep track of. You got one that took place back in April. You had another one in June, Mar-a-Lago. The one in April was Stormy Daniels. Mar-a-Lago classified documents in June. The federal overturning of the election in 2020 that came 2 weeks ago. And then yesterday, Georgia election interference, 2 federal, 2 state. So with each passing indictment, it appears like Donald Trump in a Republican primary gets even stronger. Maybe that's part of what the folks want here. Maybe that's part of what the federal government, the Biden DOJ, and the political actors at the state levels in New York and Georgia want. I believe that's part of what is happening here. But like with everything else, with Donald Trump, people want to make it so black and white, right? They want to make it so clear on either side when it comes to Trump. And it never is. It's not in this case. It's not in most of them. Is Donald Trump being politically targeted? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. You're in a state in Georgia where Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor, still claims she won the 2018 election for governor down there. The irony is rich. That being said, did Trump have a, as he put it on social media, perfect call with Republican Secretary of State in January of 2021, Brad Raffensperger, Georgia's top election official, when he asked him to find enough votes to overturn the election? Hell no. And it's okay to say both things. It's okay to believe that Donald Trump has been politically targeted by the federal government and by state entities as well. He has been. Anybody trying to tell you that this would happen to anybody else in their situation, in Trump's situation, is fooling yourself. It is happening because of the letter next to Donald Trump's name. And it's not his inmate number, it's the R. That's why this is happening to Donald Trump. So this is not as simple as people want to make it out into. It's just not. It never has been and never will be. But what you saw yesterday was once again an attempt by political actors to set up a Democratic victory in 2024. It gooses Trump in a primary. It helps him become the nominee. And then amazingly, the timeline for all these trials just happen to work out perfectly. So they are highly discussed in 2024 as a presidential election is well underway. The Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, said that she is looking to get a trial, in the next 6 months. Oh, wow. So she's giving defendants until Friday, August 25th to turn themselves in. That's a week from this Friday. And then she's going to seek a trial date sometime in the next 6 months. That would be sometime around the end of February-ish, right before Super Tuesday. And then, of course, you're off to the races in the election cycle, really March of next year. So right before the election cycle picks up full steam, right before Donald Trump could be cruising to a renomination for the Republican Party, they are going to try to get him in court and get a trial date set for what happened down in Georgia. Boy, no politics here, right? Nothing to see whatsoever. No way. Not at all. Fani Willis, the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney, went on to say this yesterday in her announcement.
The indictment alleges that rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result. Subsequent to the indictment, as is the normal process in Georgia law, the grand jury issued arrest warrants for those who are charged. I am giving the defendants the opportunity to voluntarily surrender no later than noon on Friday, the 25th day of August, 2023.
All right, so that is Fannie Willis, the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney. Fairly annoying voice, but, got to play the audio,
I was
John.
going to say she's doing the part of the town crier.
Yeah.
Hear ye, hear ye. Big number, they're innocent. Presumed innocent.
Well, hey, Hollywood's looking for some fill-ins right now. She may have some work on the side there.
Yeah, some voiceover work for her.
Exactly, in addition to being the Fulton County District Attorney. So Trump has been charged with 13 felonies, alleging that he pushed false claims of voter fraud in Georgia and pressured Republican officials to help him secure the state's electoral college votes. So the first part of that, pushing false claims of voter fraud. As we talked about with the federal case, in this country, you have a First Amendment right to go out there and say what you want. Doesn't mean what you're saying is backed up with facts. In Trump's case, they're not yet. By the way, if this does go to trial, he will have an opportunity to prove that he's right. He'll have an opportunity to prove that he's telling the truth. Not that the burden of proof is on him. It's not. That's not how it works in this country. But I'm just adding that as a caveat here as well. That being said, he's allowed to say, I can disagree with him, and I do. He's allowed to say that he was cheated out of Georgia's electoral votes. He's allowed to say it. It's not illegal. It might not be accurate, but it's not illegal.
As you pointed out, Stacey Abrams said the same.
2018.
Similar.
Still saying that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
No one's asking her about it. No one's investigating her about it, but she still says it. And then there's the second part of this, pressuring Republican officials to help him secure the state's electoral college votes. I need to see more on that beyond simply Trump placing a call to a guy and saying, hey, find me some votes there. Would you, Brad? The Secretary of State. Not condoning it. It's in no way appropriate. But that's, in many ways, different than being something that you would pursue charges over and bring a guy to trial over. Those are two different things. And that's where I know with Trump, we're not allowed to have nuance. It's like an unwritten rule in media. But we should, because that's the smart thing to do when talking about these things.
One of the favorite things about Trump before his first election was we're like, let's get a business guy to run this country. I'm tired of the politicians. This is Trump, the business guy, on the phone. Hey, I need you cut me a deal here or something, right? He's used to picking up the phone. Hey, I need a couple votes here. What can you do for me?
Yes.
Right? That's the businessman part of it, I think, where the politician might have had his assistant call votes.
Or just listen to his damn attorneys, one or the other. But you're right. And that doesn't justify necessarily calling a guy and saying, hey, can you find me votes? Because that's not how it works. It's not like, can you cut me a deal? But that's what you always get with Trump. Mm-hmm. That's who he is.
Yeah.
That's in his DNA. None of it makes it right. But it still can be a complete political hit job by a Democratic establishment, yet still not be in Donald Trump's best interests. And here we go. We're off to the races on a fourth indictment of Donald Trump. Eric Erickson hosts a talk radio show in Atlanta on WSB. He's going to be here just after 8 o'clock, give us a local perspective on what's happening with this latest Trump indictment and how it's playing down there. Because don't forget, the other interesting part is that Georgia is a swing state and will help determine the 2024 election. Coming up on KCMO, speaking of people running for president, I've got to give credit to this guy. He gave one of the best answers. I would say the best answer I've seen on any campaign trail in this cycle. I'll tell you who that is, and I'll share the answer with you next. This may be the best answer I've seen on the campaign trail. I know it's early. I realize that there is still plenty of time and runway in this election season, but I got to give credit where it's due. Vivek Ramaswamy. Yesterday, we played a clip of him rapping at the Iowa State Fair. Now, Mark's been to many Iowa State fairs. He's never seen a presidential candidate rap at one of them. Is that right, Mark?
That's correct. I've never seen that happen.
All right. Well, if you were there, if you had some family who were up there, they saw Vivek Ramaswamy rapping to Eminem over the weekend.
Oh, wow. He opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's joking now. Everybody's joking now. The clock's run out. Time's up. Over. Plow. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes gravity. He's so mad, but he won't give up. He won't back to he knows he's so mad.
I thought it was pretty good. A lot of people were knocking him. I'm like, geez, we got a guy under 40 running for president as a Republican who is worth hundreds of millions of dollars as an entrepreneur, and he's rapping to Eminem. I'm okay with that. Not the guy I want to be the nominee, but an important and valuable voice for a party that is perceived to be stuck in the mud, stodgy, stiff, whatever. He brings out a different side in many ways. So I like Vivek Ramaswamy. He's not going to be the nominee, but I think it's good to have his voice. And then I saw this yesterday. This went viral yesterday afternoon. Vivek Ramaswamy in Iowa talking to a reporter and getting asked about, the LGBTQIA plus division sign issues. Just take a listen to this real life back and forth between this reporter, the question, and what Vivek has to say.
I was just wondering, what were your opinions on the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, I don't think it's one community.
Really?
Yeah, how could it be? Just mashed together in alphabet soup. Trans is fundamentally in tension with gay, if you ask me. But what's your opinion?
I'm personally pansexual, so I was just wondering what your views on same-sex couples were.
All right, so before we continue, the reporter says she's pansexual. That means that a pansexual person, reading this from the dictionary, sexually or romantically attracted to people regardless of their sex or gender. So bisexual, I guess we used to call that. But now since there's not two anymore, we can't call it bisexual. Now it's pansexual. Mm-hmm. So you hear Vivek go through this back and forth, and, he's very polite. He says, well, what do you think? And she goes, well, I'm pansexual. What that has to do with anything, I don't know. But he says, what do you think? And then he goes on to explain himself and explain his stance. And just take a listen to this.
I don't have a negative view of same-sex couples, but I do have a negative view of a tyranny of the minority. So I think that in the name of protecting against a tyranny of the majority, and there are times in this country's history where we have had a tyranny of the majority, we have now, in the name of protecting against tyranny of the majority, created a new tyranny of the minority. And I think that that's wrong. I don't think that somebody who's religious should be forced to officiate a wedding that they disagree with. I don't think somebody who is a woman who's worked really hard for her achievements should be forced to compete against a biological man in a swim competition. I don't think that somebody who's a woman that respects her bodily autonomy and dignity should be forced to change clothes in a locker room with a man. That's not freedom, that's oppression. And so I believe that we live in a country where free adults should be free to dress how they want, behave how they want, and that's fine. But you don't become oppressive by foisting that on others. And that especially includes kids, because kids aren't the same as adults. And so I think adults are free to make whatever choices they want, but do not foist that ideology onto children before children are in a position as adults to make decisions for themselves. And so I think a lot of the frustration in the country, and if I'm being really honest, that I also share, comes from that new culture of oppression where saying those things can actually get somebody punished. And in my case, it's part of why it's my responsibility to say them. And I respect that you may have a different opinion, and that's okay. It's part of what makes our country great is that you and I can be civil and have this conversation, and that we live in a country that still gives us, each of us, the right to speak to a presidential candidate and back and still say that we pledge allegiance to the same nation. So I think that's the beauty of our country, and that's my honest opinion.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks.
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for your civility as well. I appreciate it.
That is Vivek Ramaswamy. A little round of applause there for old Vivek. That is a brilliant way to handle that individual who comes up to him in Iowa and says, hey, I'm pansexual. What do you think of the LGBTQ community? And he goes on to note that, first off, it's not one big alphabet soup community. He goes on to rightly note that the trans agenda that some are pushing, especially with young children, is completely opposed to just the idea of gay individuals wanting to get married, live together, whatever it might be. He makes that point very much loud and clear, and he's right to make that point. And then he goes into the tyranny of the minority. I thought that was such a great line. The tyranny of the minority. If you don't accept what 1%, 2%, 3% of the country believes or wants to believe, well, by golly, we're going to make sure that your life is ruined and you're canceled. That's happened to people in the real world. Like, that's not being, that's not me being dramatic. That's not me exaggerating. That is happening to people. And he's pointing out the obvious here that we've stated on this show, and that is that kids are not adults. You can believe that adults should be free to do what they want to themselves in this country. You can also then believe that 8-year-olds are off limits. And that's the point that he was making incredibly succinctly. And that's why I believe that's the best off-the-cuff answer I've heard of any GOP candidate in this cycle, John.
Yeah, I think, and perhaps because of his answer or who he is, I mean, the questioner did not interrupt him.
Yes.
You know, he was kind of following a logical pattern, right? And so there was no but. And she thanked him for the thing. I thought that was unique. So I don't know. That might be because of the answer was well thought out and articulated.
What's she going to say to that?
Right.
You know, I mean, and he did thank her for civility. She was not, to her credit, I probably don't agree with anything she believes.
Right.
But to her credit, she let the guy answer. There was a civil back and forth. And boy, do we need more of that in this country in 2023. News coming up in 2 minutes. Meantime, the tragedy in Hawaii. What is the White House's response? There is no response. We'll get to it next. Could you imagine? Let's just flip the script here. By the way, welcome in on a Tuesday morning. Tirade Tuesday is coming up at 8:30. I may get on a tirade right now. How about that? I've been waiting on this. It's only been a half hour of the show, and I was like, well, I don't want to put it right off the top, so I'm going to wait till 6:30. But that being said, could you imagine? There's a natural disaster, and a Republican president is sitting on a beach. Something like what the folks in Maui are dealing with right now. And George W. or Trump sitting there on the beach, blowing off reporters, looking out over the pristine ocean along Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. What do you think the response would be? I mean, just think back to George W. in the wake of Katrina, right?
Yep, that's the one I was thinking of.
That's the biggest one that comes to mind, going back, 18 years now? Or think about this. Just in the last couple of years, the last guy. I'm going to read you some headlines from, let's see, I've got a headline from September of 2017 from the Washington Post. How Trump's time at his golf club hurt the response to Hurricane Maria. This is from the New York Daily News, September of 2019. Trump once again spends day at his Virginia golf course as Florida braces for catastrophic hurricane. This is from Business Insider. I don't have a date on this one, but here's the headline. Trump said he skipped a diplomatic trip to monitor Hurricane Dorian. Then he spent the weekend golfing. And this one, September of 2019. Why Donald Trump golfing during Hurricane Dorian is a problem. As if Trump's supposed to stand there with the American flag in the eye of the hurricane while the wind's blowing in his face. You get out of here! You turn around, hurricane!
Is it possible to monitor something and do another task, multitask?
Well,
perhaps.
Possible. Yes, I would say so.
My favorite's Melania's shoes, but I'm not sure which storm that was.
That's right. I bring all this up not because I think Joe Biden should be, in Maui handing out bottles of water, right? Or like Trump when Trump went to Puerto Rico and was tossing rolls of toilet paper at the Puerto Ricans after a big storm. Oh, that one still cracks me up. But it's not that, Joe Biden has to be there. It's the fact that the media does not equally apply its standards to Democrats as it does Republicans. If a Republican president was sitting on the beach this week as Maui burned, and what's the death toll now? Is it over 100? If not, it's close to it, which is far more than any of the hurricanes that we're talking about with Trump. And Trump was sitting on a beach somewhere? Oh, my goodness. Not that Trump's really a beach guy. Like, I'm just picturing Trump in his suit standing on the beach. But the point is, they do not apply their own belief systems to their own guys. They just don't do it. That's all I'm asking for here. So yesterday, the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, was asked about this. Like, hey, what's going on? Joe doing anything? You guys are getting some criticism here. Of course, they treat him with kid gloves. Here's what that sounded like.
Hawaii. How does the White House respond to critics who have suggested that the president should not have been vacationing at the beach over the weekend as the Maui crisis became the worst wildfire in a century?
So a couple of things, and I've said this multiple times. The president is certainly deeply concerned about the people in Maui. To the point where he has mobilized a whole of government approach here, as he has done many times to deal with these wildfires in Hawaii from the beginning. You've heard directly from the administrator from day one. FEMA has been on the ground dealing with this. There's more than 300 personnel, FEMA personnel. We've talked about the 50,000 meals. We've talked about the 75,000 liters of water, the thousands of cots that are out there and blankets. And there is more than a dozen federal agencies who are dealing with this issue right now that we're currently seeing in Maui, and it is a devastating sight.
It is, and I don't want Joe Biden on the island of Maui. At this point, it would be more of a headache and a struggle to have him there to do a photo op. I don't want him there. But remember what happened when George W. flew over the wreckage at Hurricane Katrina. Remember that? He didn't go on the ground. He flew over. And the media talked about George W. 18 years ago now, this month, flying over the wreckage of Hurricane Katrina as if he was looking down on the peasants. And he couldn't get himself down on the ground and shake the people's hands and give the hugs. And, I mean, they destroyed the guy. In many ways, that was the beginning and the end of his second term, but they destroyed the guy for that. I'm going to be fair to Joe. I don't want him on the ground in Maui causing more of a headache at this point in time. But the media's inability to apply its own standards to Democrats as it does Republicans is just every day there's a new example. And the way that they've treated Joe with kid gloves over Maui is, even by the standards I had for him, which were pretty darn low, unbelievable. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre in general had a rough press conference yesterday. The Hawaii U.S. Senator, do you think it's important that the White House press secretary know who the senators are for each state? And maybe not all 100. I don't know if it's like a quiz you've got to pass before you become the White House press secretary. But it probably is good to know who the U.S. senators are for the state that has its biggest natural disaster ever ongoing as we speak. Yet our current White House press secretary was not aware and messed up the names of the two U.S. senators from Hawaii.
Senator Horino, who I said the president spoke to just last night, he thanked the president for the immediate support of federal...
Wait. Back it up. Senator Horino, and then she said Senator Horino. She referred to Senator Horino as a he. We got two problems there. The name, it's Senator Hirono, and last I checked, Mazie Hirono was a woman. Now, that could change today There may not have been an announcement yet, since now, you can just move around whenever you want. But that being said, Mazie Hirono is a woman, yet the White House press secretary referred to her as a he and called her Senator Horino.
Senator Horino, who I said the president spoke to just last night, he thanked the president for the immediate support of federal agencies have delivered for residents of Hawaii, and so has Senator Shorts.
His name is Brian Schatz. He's another Democrat who's the U.S. Senator, the other U.S. Senator from Hawaii. I mean, if you want to call him Senator Sharts, that's fine with me. I mean, the guy, as far as I can tell, his policy is one big shart anyway, so it probably works just fine. But, man, I know talking is tough. I do it for a living. It can be tough, but she really makes it appear much more difficult than it is, John.
Well, I could forgive her for confusing, the names with the Miami quarterback, Dan Marino, went to the Super Bowls. Right. How about short, sharp shock there? That's what you need, a short, sharp shock.
Oh, my goodness. Mm-hmm. It's just unbelievable to watch the media treat these people with such kid gloves. They can't even spit out the names properly of the senators for the state. Biden's sitting on a beach in Delaware, and everyone's just like, yep, nothing to see here. Boy, Trump got indicted again. How about that? Woo, fourth time in 4 months Trump's been indicted. Jeez, all in on Trump, baby. Trump.
Such a nice man.
Unbelievable. Coming up, speaking of unbelievable things in the media, yesterday was a sad day here in the Kansas City area. We laid to rest a fallen police officer in Fairway. And once again, your supposed newspaper of record embarrassed itself with its coverage or lack thereof. I have the screenshots to prove it, and there are some formerly prominent media people in town who are not happy with me. I'll tell you who that is next. Well, yesterday was the funeral for fallen Fairway police officer Jonah Oswald. And it was an emotional day for law enforcement all across the region. If you watched any of the coverage, it was incredibly powerful. It was incredibly moving. Here's a 29-year-old who leaves behind a wife and 2 young children. He had been on the force for just 4 years. And as is noted here in this article by Fox 4, he leaves behind a legacy of leadership, respect, and honor that won't be forgotten. Officer Oswald passed away, died in the line of duty last Sunday during that police chase that started in Lenexa. I guess it was in Fairway, I believe it was. And then where did it start again?
Started in Lenexa at about 95th and I-35 at that the Quick Trip location there. Then it went north on I-35. And, of course, that bends and comes back to the east as you head towards Mission. So then they were coming north on I-35, basically. Made the swing to the east as they continued towards downtown. Apparently jumped off maybe there at Lamar, where that Quick Trip is.
Yes, and that's where the shootout occurred. Yeah. And one of the guys who was allegedly involved with the vehicle theft died, and so did Officer Oswald in the shootout. So this guy on a Sunday morning, 7:30, ends up dying in the line of duty. Fairway cop. Not that, certain cops in certain jurisdictions expect to die or be in harm's way in the line of duty over others. But let's be honest, nobody would have ever predicted that a Fairway police officer, a Fairway, Kansas police officer, would be likely to die in the line of duty at any point this year, next year, or the year after that. But here we are. It's a huge story. I mean, it comes, about a year after we lost a North Kansas City police officer who was doing a routine traffic stop. So it's happening, unfortunately, around the metro. It's happened far too often around the metro. And this is an enormous story. Well, yesterday, I go on and I'm doing some show prep last night. And once again, go to the Kansas City Star homepage, and they've got 13 stories. 13 stories above the fold on the Kansas City Star homepage. And there is not one that has anything to do with the passing of Officer Oswald and the funeral that was held yesterday for Officer Oswald. Top 13 stories in this town. Not one of them. The lead story was, of course, the raid on the Marion County Record, the newspaper that was raided on Friday by county police. They had a couple stories on that. They had the story of Dolly Parton being in Overland Park yesterday. They had a story on former KU Center Udoka Azubuike. They had Andy Reid stories in here. They had a story on a house for sale in the Kansas City area. I get some of this stuff like, they put it up there because they're getting paid to do it. It's kind of like sponsored articles on the homepage. Unfortunately, it's part of newspaper media nowadays. But you have an officer who's laid to rest yesterday, 29 years old, dies in the line of duty 8 days prior. And you don't think it's worthy last night of having that anywhere above the fold on the homepage. At no point is there a story in the top 13 stories on the Kansas City Star website that talks about a fallen police officer being laid to rest right in our backyard. Not one. And by the way, I'm looking at it right now. There's still nothing when it comes to the top stories on the website. And even when you scroll down, I'm trying to find something here anywhere on the homepage. Scrolling down, local news, more in local. Nothing in the local stories that I'm seeing on the homepage. It's just embarrassing. So yesterday, I put this up on Twitter. I put up a screenshot of this on my Twitter page, at Pete Mundo. You can see it there. And it got a lot of response. Let's start with the mayor of Kansas City who chimed in, Quentin Lucas. He responded to me on Twitter. He said, I critique when I think it's necessary. But I saw their journalists there. I assume that means at the funeral. Just because the website sucks and doesn't seem to update anything, including stories in a timely manner, doesn't mean it won't be covered in the regular paper. I don't think they're so woke they're ignoring this story. This is unfortunately normal for their news of the day, that you have to wait for the next day or future days on the website. I wrote back to the mayor. You want to fill in the gaps there, John? Is there something you want to say to the mayor's response before I tell you what I said?
No, I'm 63 years old and have less understanding of computers than people younger than me, but even I can see through that one.
You can sniff out the BS on this.
I can put something on the internet right now.
Yeah.
If I wanted, right now.
I wrote back to the mayor. I said, you're giving them way too much credit and leeway on this. You know as well as I do, their coverage or lack thereof of law enforcement, depending on the issue and the angle. Maybe they'll pop in a blurb in Thursday's paper. It'll be next to Tuesday night's Royals box score. 2 days late on the box scores in the actual newspaper. But as for the website, acting like the Star has no control over what's on its homepage? Come on, Mr. Mayor. I know they are your friends when it comes to the editorial board. I know they'll protect you over the next couple of years on some key issues that you're pushing. But Quentin Lucas is too smart to buy this BS.
No, I think quite the opposite. He's been whacked on a couple times by them recently, so I think he's trying to smooch a little.
So he's trying to smooch
so
by...
he can say, hey, I'm in between you and Mundo.
Oh,
He's putting himself in the middle, because he's actually mentioned that here on the show.
I see.
Remember?
So you think it is a tactical play to appear as if he's pushing back on me, defending the Star, and he's playing mediator between the two sides here.
Possibly. I wouldn't discount that.
I wouldn't put it past him. That's an interesting thought there, John. Either way, the notion that the Star, this is kind of like their gun debate, right? It's not, there's no editor for the website. It's just the website. There's no one who actually pulls the trigger of the gun. It's just the gun. I find their gun argument to be in line with the don't blame the Star for their website sucking. It's not their fault. They can't pick and choose what is the top story on the website. Abso-freaking-lutely they can.
Wouldn't it behoove them to have the contents of the paper on the website? Isn't that the new business model in communications? Aren't they pushing everyone over there, maybe?
Well, here's the thing. Yes.
Right.
And it should be on the website before it's in the newspaper. That should have been one of the lead stories.
It certainly can be.
It can be,
yeah.
And it should be. to your point. The local TV stations all had Officer Oswald's funeral as, if not their number one story, their number two story last night on their websites. For the Kansas City Star, it was not worthy of a top 13 story. 13 stories. Not worthy of one of the top 13. Oh, Dave Helling, by the way, he shared on Twitter that we didn't have it on our website at kcmotalkradio.com. Dude, we are not a news department. We are talk shows here. I know that's news to you.
Talk about a bombshell.
But that's what we do. How about that? You get outside this morning. If you haven't yet, for us it was in the 4 o'clock hour, but it's like 61 degrees. Oh, my goodness, that felt good. Can't wait for the hundreds this weekend, though. If you're going out to Billy Joel Stevie Nicks, it's going to be like 101 degrees at Arrowhead. So be prepared for that. Happy Tuesday. Tirade Tuesday is coming up at 8:30. So start thinking about those tirades. You got about 45 minutes to go on that. Meantime, tomorrow in Kansas City, Rob Manfred is coming to town. Boo! Although he's actually done a decent job here the last year or two. He is the commissioner of Major League Baseball. Now, he's not just coming here to eat barbecue. He's got a purpose for being here. Rob Manfred is coming to town tomorrow to join a conversation at the Urban Youth Academy. And during the conversation, according to a press release from the Royals, Manfred will share an update on the state of the game and will speak to ways in which new ballparks and the districts surrounding them have made an impact on their local communities. Manfred will be joined by Negro Leagues Baseball Museum President Bob Kendrick and Royals Chairman and CEO John Sherman. This is a way to pitch you, the taxpayer, whether it's in Jackson County or Clay County, on the idea that you should vote for more taxes or renewal of taxes for a new ballpark. That's what this is about. I just think the order's wrong. If I have criticism here, it's that this visit should have waited until after the Royals decide where they want to go. Because right now, tomorrow, when people are watching this, it's going to be like, okay, Rob, are you talking to Jackson County residents or are you talking to Clay County residents? Who are you talking to here? Because it's a soft sales pitch for a new stadium. That's what Rob Manfred is doing here. He's making a soft sales pitch on why Clay or Jackson County residents should vote to give the Royals hundreds of millions of dollars for their new ballpark. And that's fine. I mean, if he wants to do it, that's completely acceptable. He's allowed to make the pitch, and it's a fine pitch to make. But no one even knows who's getting pitched to here. Are you pitching this to Clay County or Jackson County? Like, what are you doing? Now, maybe this is the only time that Rob Manfred could come to Kansas City. I don't think that's true, but maybe it is, which could change the conversation. But this would have made a lot more sense after the Royals decided we're going to North KC or we're going to the East Village. But instead, what you've got here is now a situation where no one knows who Rob Manfred is talking to tomorrow. Now, as we sit here on August 15th, do I think the Royals know where they want to go? I do. They're going to wait till the end of September. And this is not based on inside information. I just genuinely believe the Royals know where they want to be. But they want to wait a little longer. They want to roll out the 2 renderings from the East Village and North Kansas City. They want to do the dog and pony show, and then they're going to announce it at the end of September where they're going. That's fine, but I'm not sitting here all that sympathetic for them being like, oh, let's see the rendering. Let's wait to see what they're going to do with the rendering. No, come on. I think they know the outcome. They know what they want their outcome to be, and I believe it's going to be up north. As I'm listening to Mark Donovan the other day during the Chiefs preseason game on Sunday, Mark Donovan was in the booth on Woke 41, and he's talking about how the options for Arrowhead are going to obviously be determined by what the Royals do. We know they're gone from the Truman Sports Complex, And I believe the Royals want them, or the Chiefs want the Royals gone from Jackson County. Because if the Royals leave Jackson County, what then happens? That 3/8 cent sales tax potentially opens up to only the Chiefs. They no longer have to share it. That's why it makes all the sense in the world for these two teams to break up in terms of what counties they're in. And while the Chiefs aren't going to say it publicly, you did hear on Sunday, Mark Donovan talk about what? A dome. He brought up the word dome. And if there's one thing I know without being an architect and without being a construction guy, domes aren't cheap, especially not in Joe Biden's economy, John. They're just not cheap.
Come on, man. They're out down at Home Depot. I know that much. I got them back ordered. So, Perhaps a side question, so you're connecting the dots here. Do you feel like the Royals would have handled this differently if the 2015 success was still here?
Ooh, yes.
I think they would.
Yes. I think right now.
But I don't know.
I agree. I mean, we'll never know, to your point, but they're kind of handling this in a sheepish manner because they know the team blows. I mean, it's not just bad. It sucks. It's awful. It's got one of the worst records in the sport. If they were, on their way to another ALCS or another World Series, I think they'd be a little different in their approach because they'd have a little more gravitas. They could walk around with their chest bumped out a little bit. Hey, another World Series running us. How about that new ballpark? But now they're kind of like, hey, we think this would be great. We're going to bring in Rob Manfred to make a pitch, which I don't know what baseball fan is being sold on Rob Manfred.
Yeah, I've got less interest in him and even less, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Low interest on it at all, and then putting him on there is like, oh.
Yeah, that doesn't help your cause. Unless it's really geared towards the business community or it's geared to, a cute little TV package that's going to be put up on the TV stations tomorrow night after the visit. I don't know. But yeah, to your point, if they were on their way to another deep playoff run, this would be a much different conversation. They would be saying, here's where we're going. Here's our timeline. Vote yes. It wouldn't be this, hey, let's bring in Rob Manfred to make the pitch.
That's the way I feel. I think, if they would have said, hey, here's what we want.
Yeah.
Here, look at it. Check it out.
Yeah, check it out.
Excitement plus.
And that's why I'm telling you, at this point, the Chiefs should just ask for two. The Chiefs should ask for a Royals ballpark. That's what should happen. The Chiefs should say, hey, could you guys build the Royals a new ballpark? Because they can do no wrong right now. Or just Mahomes should ask. That's what they should do. Tell me why any decent person in this climate would be running for political office. What? And I'm not saying everybody running right now is not a decent person. There are people. But, why you would get en masse a lot of people running for political office for the right reasons in this climate. After Donald Trump's most recent indictment, Ben Shapiro putting this up on Twitter half an hour ago, and he's right about this. Whatever you think about the Trump indictments, one thing is for certain. The glass has now been broken over and over again. Political opponents can be targeted by legal enemies. Running for office now carries the legal risk of going to jail on all sides. We have seen major attrition of decent people running for political office for the right reasons for, I would say, the better part of a generation. Not that, there weren't corrupt fools looking to get into D.C. and, get the inside scoop and then become a lobbyist to make a lot of money. It's been happening forever. But this will undoubtedly only make it more difficult to find candidates who are really looking to serve. It's going to be hard. Paul in Kansas City, what's up?
Hey, Pete, I would also argue that not only is it to chill people from running for political office, but also half the country that has different values and believes in different political beliefs than the executive branch currently in office. Catholic Americans have been targeted by the executive branch. Pro-life have been targeted by the executive branch. And also if you go to a school board and you disagree with the school board, you've been targeted by the executive branch. So it's not only the political one that they're chilling, but it's also the half of the country that believes different than the executive branch is kind of my thesis on that.
Yeah, that's a very good point as well, Paul. That's a very good point. Hadn't thought about that angle, but you're right to throw it into the equation as well. Ken is on KCMO. What's up, Ken?
Hey, good morning. Long time no speak.
All right, Ken, what's up?
I know personally, because it happened to me, of politically being attacked running for office when I ran for mayor of Independence, Missouri. Could not go out and say anything about it because the lawyers said it was to my best interest to stay quiet. So I did. So me running for mayor didn't go anywhere. But the people have seen enough being attacked for whatever political reason you are. That's why you see more younger people wanting to run for office to do better things than what are crooks.
Well, I'm encouraged. Thanks, Ken. I'm encouraged by younger people who want to get into the game. I do think that's a good thing that younger people want to get into the game. But man, you are putting your family through a lot potentially. Especially, let's be honest, if you're on a certain side of the political aisle, you are potentially putting your family through a lot, John.
Yeah, that's right. And one phrase I use sometimes is like, I don't even know what I don't know. To admit that I don't have all the information. So there are some things you don't even consider.
Yeah.
So you can literally not know what you don't know. And that kind of seems like what happens for first-time politicians. You're stepping into stuff you don't even know.
Yeah. You got all the right intentions. And then you're like, whoa, what did I sign up for here?
Yeah.
Ish. All right. Well, before we get to Tirade Tuesday in 10 minutes, I have to give credit to, I'll call him 41 KSHB. I will drop the woke monitor, at least for now. I will drop the moniker of Woke 41 Action News for at least a day. I might give him a week off. Credit where it's due. Yesterday, Jonah Oswald, 29-year-old who leaves behind a wife and 2 kids, was laid to rest. Fairway police officer who was shot with that cop chase up to the Quick Trip in Mission last Sunday morning. And KSHB, did a very good job covering the story over the last 24 hours. It was one of their lead stories. They did a separate story as well on the folks who showed up, the bagpipers who showed up for the funeral yesterday. It was all very well done by KSHB.
Over the last few years, playing for at least 5 families of fallen officers.
We know what to expect because we've done this way, way too many times.
It could be anybody here. So that's the hard part.
Today, sending off Officer Jonah Oswald to his final resting place. The Pipers remembering each note they've played over the years.
I haven't known any of these folks, but this is how I can honor them and say thank you. Brother, sister, we're here. We're here for you. We're playing for you. You're important. Your family's important, and give them that warrior send off, and that's what this is.
One with a poetic ending. One single piper leading Officer Oswald to heaven's gates with the sounds of the bagpipes to guide him. Abby Dodge, KSHB 41 News.
Abby Dodge used to be with KCTV5. Looks like she's now at KSHB, doing a very good job on that report on the bagpipers behind Officer Oswald's funeral services yesterday. That is very well done. It was one of their lead stories. It was their lead story on their website throughout the day, unlike the Kansas City Star, which I caused a stink on social media about the fact that of 13 stories on their homepage last night, of the top 13 stories on their homepage last night, not one on the Kansas City Star's homepage of their top 13 stories about Officer Oswald's funeral. Not one. They continue to be the biggest embarrassment in this town. And the tweet's up. I put it up on my Twitter page, on my Facebook page. A lot of people unhappy about it, but you know what? I've got the screenshots to back it up. I didn't see this coming. I'm happy about it, but I didn't see it coming. 9 o'clock hour on KCMO Talk Radio. Got an hour until Chris DeGaul takes over. So yesterday, it was last night actually, like right before I shut it down for the night, I put up a tweet that had a picture of the front page, homepage of the Kansas City Star. And there's 13 stories on the homepage, and there's not one of them that had anything to do with the fallen Fairway police officer, Jonah Oswald, who was laid to rest yesterday. And the funeral services took place yesterday. Not a single story out of the top 13 on the Kansas City Star's homepage. So I put up a screenshot of the top of the homepage, 13 stories on it, not one about a local police officer laid to rest. And I wrote on Twitter, fallen Fairway police officer Jonah Oswald was laid to rest today after dying in the line of duty last week. I write, your newspaper of record once again does not find that to be a worthy top 13 story on the homepage. Sad. At KC Star. Got a lot of reaction, a lot of views. The mayor of Kansas City chimed in on this, Quentin Lucas, and he wrote back, I critique when I think it's necessary, but I saw their journalist there. I assume he means at the funeral. Just because the website sucks and doesn't seem to update anything, including stories in a timely manner, doesn't mean it won't be covered in the regular paper. I don't think they're so woke they're ignoring the story, says the mayor of Kansas City. And I wrote back to him, you're giving them way too much credit and leeway on this. You know as well as I do their coverage or lack thereof of law enforcement, depending on the issue and the angle. I wrote, maybe they'll pop a blurb in Thursday's paper. It'll be next to Tuesday night's Royals box score, since they're always a day behind. But you and I both know that in any other circumstance, I mean, how many times has the Star covered things? And not that they shouldn't have covered the Ralph Yarl story. They should have. That was a huge story. That was a national story. They were promoting Ralph Yarl's fundraiser for days on end on the homepage. There was a fundraiser for Jonah Oswald's family, and it barely got a mention anywhere on the website. I'm not saying the Ralph Yarl story is not incredibly important. It is. It was. But they clearly show their political stripes by a police officer getting killed and it barely gracing the front page of the website at the Kansas City Star. It's not worthy, according to them, not worthy of a top 13 story on their website. Every TV outlet in town, to its credit, had this as their lead yesterday. A fallen police officer in the line of duty, 29 years old, leaves behind a wife and 2 young kids. And the Star doesn't have time for it on the homepage last night. It's pathetic. So I didn't see this happening, but this morning somebody chimed in. The former mayor of Independence, Eileen Weir, responded to my tweets and my back and forth with Quentin Lucas. And she wrote, the worst newspaper, our region deserves better. Now, Eileen Weir is not some diehard Republican conservative. Yeah, as far as I know, she's probably a left of center Democrat. Maybe now she's a middle of the road because they keep running so far to the left. But she's certainly not somebody that probably has the same worldviews as I do. And she just put it up on social media here in the last hour. Eileen Weir, former mayor of Independence, calling the Kansas City Star the worst newspaper. Our region deserves better.
Her current position, her most recent position says named interim executive director of the Mid-America LGBT Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, really? Okay.
LGBT, yeah. Just 4 in there, just 4 letters. I didn't leave any out. That's what it says.
Okay.
Just so we know.
Yep. I saw that here last month. I see that
July
story.
Release.
Yeah, July press release.
So there you go.
So needless to say, she probably sees the world in a much more similar fashion to the Star than she does to me, to your point there, John. But now here she is publicly putting it out there on my Twitter page that the Kansas City Star, in her words, is the worst newspaper and that our region deserves better. Now, what's interesting is I am hearing the name Eileen Weir as a possible Jackson County executive if things move forward with Frank White and any kind of a recall effort or things like that. I've heard her name pop up in the conversation from some people in the know. And, I don't really have an opinion either way on that right now, but I find it interesting if she is considering a political future in Jackson County and she's willing to put it up on on Twitter that the Kansas City Star is, in her words, the worst newspaper and our region deserves better. And it does. Now, Quentin Lucas is not going to say that because he needs the Star editorial board to defend him on some things over the next couple of years. He's going to need them on a couple of key issues where he goes to the left, and the Star will be there to back him up. Now, of course, it's going to be read by the same 6 people, but either way, better than nobody. Also, I got this criticism. This is from Dave Helling on Twitter. He did a screenshot of our KCMO Talk Radio homepage. And he writes, for the record, KCMO's website doesn't find it worthy either, referring to the death and the funeral services for Officer Oswald. Dave, we're not a news site. You know better than that. We're not a news site. It's not what we do. We have talk shows on the radio, on the internet, on the podcasts. That's what we do. We don't cover news. We don't pretend to be a newspaper. You guys do. Or not you guys. He's retired now. The Star does. The Star pretends to be a newspaper. That's what they claim to be in the business of. That's not what we do. You want to talk about apples to oranges? That is a perfect example. Well, you guys at KCMO didn't cover it on your website. Yeah, we're not pretending to be, the newspaper of record here at KCMO. That's not our job. So this flimsy notion of, you guys aren't doing it. Yeah, and we don't pretend to be something we're not. If you guys just want to be, if the Kansas City Star just wants to be essentially a blog where you guys talk about whatever insane left-wing ideas you have on a given day, that's cool. Whatever you want to do, that's fine. But don't tell us you're a newspaper and then not think that the funeral services of a police officer in Fairway, Kansas, right outside your backyard, isn't worthy of being a top 13 story. 913-408-7710 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio, 710 AM and 103.7 FM. I guess I just got in a little extra tirade Tuesday. How's that sound for you? Did I just latch on the tirade Tuesday there, John? What do you think about that?
I think it's a spirited telling of the truth, so I don't know if that's a tirade or not.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You know what? Gosh, that's why you're the best producer in the business. You just made me feel better about that, which is your job. Thank you very much for that. There you go.
Such a nice man.